Greetings and welcome to this week's reading. This week, I decided to kind of focus on something a little bit more challenging for some of us because it looks at the idea of pressure to follow outside rhythms, to sync up with what's going on in the outside world. And so the question that I was pondering when I did the reading up was, when you feel pressure to sync up with the outside rhythms, what helps you lean into the rhythm of your unique flow? And one of the reasons why this I think is important is because sometimes your unique flow and your rhythm is to follow along with what the rest of the world is doing. And there's times where it's going to be completely different. And so to be able to know how to lean into what rhythm is calling us forward and what rhythm we're being asked to lean into can take a lot of trust, can take a lot of time to understand. So that was kind of my thought behind this particular reading. And so if you're like me, you might struggle with sticking to a routine. I can stick to a routine um until I hit a roadblock, right? Like every now and then there'll be this bump in the road that will show up and I'll lose the routine. I'll lose the flow of it and I just can't get back to it no matter what I try to do. And I've often beaten myself up because I'll see people out there going, why are they able to keep to that same routine and to keep doing things and it looks so simple? And here I am, beating myself up and really struggling to be able to stick to sometimes a silly routine of remembering to brush your teeth every morning. Having this kind of struggle can leave you feeling like you're out of step, like you're behind and you're forever trying to catch up to other people, or that, there's something kind of wrong with you because it seems so simple to others. And when you're being told that you're doing things wrong, even, right? Like you might try to do something, people say, no, no, that's not how you do it, then that's just really makes you feel like you're isolating yourself or that, whatever it is that you're doing is alienating you from the rest of the world. And as I said, like that's one side of this whole dilemma. The other is like on the other hand, like routines and consistency do come naturally for some people, and they do come naturally in some areas of our lives. And so there's those of us who struggle with this wound, and then those who struggle, who follow the flow of society and maintain the consistency of habits and routines, they can also carry their own wound, right? Because if they see other people doing things in a different way or finding some kind of easier way to do things and they still follow the same old because it feels good to them, they might feel a wound that they carry around, themselves. They may feel belittled or threatened by those who push them to break their own routines and patterns. They may feel as if they're falling behind, especially in modern times, right? Like the 9 to 5 thing just doesn't exist anymore, really. And so there's this tension between rhythms that can leave a lot of people feeling out of sync on both sides. And I think that's really what I was kind of looking at. And so the purpose for today's reading is to create space to explore the types of rhythms and routines and flows that create tension in your life. And it's all about what it does for you, because there's nothing we can do about the rhythms and the routines and everything outside of ourselves. What we can do is tune into what are they in our lives? How are they making us feel? What's going on? So the question that I'm going to start now to shuffle into the deck is, what differing rhythms are creating tension and discord in your life? So what differing rhythms are creating tension and discord in your life? Get those shuffled up nicely. Okay, let's pick our cards. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the first card of this reading is asking, what rhythms are seeking your time and recognition? So what rhythms are seeking your time and recognition? And here we have the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is a very dynamic kind of character. He's one that, he's going to be in the front of the army, leading everybody and going off chasing dragons and everything. He's a very adventurous kind of fella. And along with that, there's this idea that the answer is irrelevant. It's the journey, it's the quest, it's whatever is motivating you to get going. So this is somebody whose life will be a constant quest. There will be no answer. Even if the dragon gets slain, they're off on something else before, the dragon even hits the ground, because they're not about the end goal. They're about the constant movement, the constant search for adventure. And so when we're looking at the rhythms that are seeking your time and recognition, it's the adventurous rhythms. It's the idea of trying something else, of looking at something new and not getting stuck in that stagnation, not getting stuck in old habits and old patterns. And this does make a lot of sense, because sometimes, where some of that wounding comes from is this idea that nothing ever changes, that everything stays the same. And the Knight of Wands is coming up and saying, because you let it, because there's a fear of breaking a habit, of leaving a routine behind, because the routine had its point. The habits had their point at some point when they started, that there was something they were supporting, there was something that they were helping out, there was something of them that had meaning in your life at the time. And now, maybe a year later, maybe 5 years later, maybe 10 years later or more, that habit and that routine is no longer necessary. It might have been part of a scaffolding that you were using in order to heal from a wound that had happened. It might have been something that you were doing to help you transition from one state of life to the next. Whatever it was, the Knight of Wands is coming out and saying, hey, it's time we seek something else. There is a different adventure out there. And your routines and your habits and your rhythms are all out of sync because there's something that needs to be shaken up. There's something that needs to be explored. And it doesn't mean that you're being asked to go on this big grand adventure where you have to travel to a different continent. It can just be, let's look at the habits and the patterns that we have and see which ones are filling us up and we like every day we can't wait to get this done, and which ones are drudgery, or the ones that are like, I guess I'll do that, right? That's what the Knight of Wands is coming in and saying, that's where you're out of sync. That's where your energy really, really needs to be looked at. And it's really interesting that that's where we start, because the next one is what happens in your body when you fall out of sync from your internal rhythm. So if the Knight of Wands is coming, hey, let's check out our energy levels. Let's check out what our body's doing. It's a perfect lead into what the next card is. And here we have the Two of Swords. And so it's really interesting that we have an air card that our body is saying, hey, we need to listen to this. And what that kind of translates into when we're looking at a physical representation is, where is it? So the Two of Swords, I'll start off by saying, is a choice point. It's a crossroads. It's something needs to give so something else can emerge. And so following the question of the Knight of Wands is what's happening with your energy. Then in the body, what we're looking for is those moments where, your breath might catch, or you might stutter over what it is that you're saying. There's this idea in the body that the choice that our brain tries to make, the body's trying to override. So there's going to be stuttering, there's going to be stopping, there's going to be some kind of glitch within the communication system of the body. And I like to look at it this way. There's times where I've had, okay, I want to go and have the chocolate bar, right? So I go to pick up the chocolate bar off the counter and all of a sudden it's on the floor. And I'm like, oh, I dropped that. So I go to pick it up again and I drop it, right? So the body's the one that's saying, we don't want it. So we're going to keep dropping it. But the brain's going, we want the chocolate bar. So let's keep going for it until finally you're so frustrated that you just throw the chocolate bar on the table and walk away. That's the Two of Swords moments. That's a choice point where it's like, what are the choices? And if we're looking at where we might be out of sync, the choice that we're looking to is, when I have the choice between this and that, which one causes that stutter? Which one causes that, that jagger, that's not the right word. We'll say this, the staggeringness of the body. And the brain just kind of keeps marching on and saying, let's go, let's go, let's go. And the body's like doing whatever it can to catch your attention. And that's really what you're looking for, is those moments where the body is really, really trying to stall out the brain and really trying to get your attention. And you're going to start to see that these are always at choice points. And they may be very small choice points because we are dealing with the minor arcana, which is still just small day-to-day things that are happening, right? So let's say the routine that you've outgrown is journaling. And I only put this here because like I've journaled, I've had a practice of journaling for a really, really long time, but I found that the journaling became to be just part of a to-do list. It no longer served the function that it had. And so what I started to realize was that every time I went to journal, there was a and there was a hesitant and there was a wall and there was a barrier, and then the barrier became another activity until I just stopped journaling. And then I was away from journaling for a long enough time that I started to miss it, and when I came back to it, it had that original purpose that it had to it. So those are the things that the Two of Swords is asking us to pay attention to. And then once we do that, we can start to move into the next area, which is how can you use your energy as a natural tuner? And when I was looking at this question, I was thinking of the concept of a tuning fork, right? If your body is a tuning fork, that when you hit the tuning fork, it's never about having the tuning fork attuned to another frequency or vibration. It's about seeing what in the environment is, vibrating at that same frequency. So your body is its own tuning fork. And if you tap the strings of, say, the energetic vibration of your body and lean into what in your environment, who in your environment is feels like it's in alignment with that, that's what you're being asked to follow. And so the question is asking, like, how can you use that natural tuner? And it's interesting that we have the Knight of Swords. So now we've got two knights. So we've got the Knight of Fire and the Knight of Air. Both are very doing, in my opinion. The Knight of Wands, he's out, like he's consuming, he's out adventuring, he's out doing things. And the Knight of Wands is also out doing, but he's clearing, he's removing any kind of distortion from the environment. The other thing with the Knight of Swords is if he's going to fight, right? So if he's going to fight and destroy everything, right? Because that's what fire does when it's uncontrolled. The Knight of Swords, what he's going to do is he's going to cut through anything that's in front of him. And a lot of times that cutting is very painful. And when the knight is acting out of defense, a lot of the things that will be said are going to be said from this place of, I'm going to hurt you before you can hurt me kind of idea, right? Which is why words tend to be the hardest things that anybody can ever heal from. I remember, when I was teaching, that one of the things they used to tell us all the time was, the kids that have the hardest time healing are the ones that come from, verbally and emotionally abusive families over physically abusive families, because the words that people use in times when people are very vulnerable to receive them, they're very insidious. And so the Knight of Wands comes to find the root of those insidious hooks to be able to cut them out. And so the best way to really understand where your energy is being attuned and what helps is the words that people say to you will cause a physical reaction, whether we're aware of it or not. But the words that people use will have a vibration. And when that vibration enters into our energetic field, it will cause either synchronization or dissonance within our energy field. And so it's really important for us to be paying attention to the conversations that we're having. And these can be verbal conversations. They can also be written, because we do spend a lot of time in a very written world, right? Like there's a lot of emails, texts, messages, chat boards, all that kind of stuff where we're interacting with words. And so it's really important to understand the absolute energetic power that words have, and that we can use our body's reaction, our energetic increase and depletion of these words to know, is this something that's in sync with me? Is this something that's in alignment with me? And especially because the whole purpose of this is leaning into our unique flow. How are the words that you're saying to yourself impacting you, right? So if you're going, I have to go and do this activity, and all of a sudden your energy drops and you're feeling small and you're feeling vulnerable, that's a moment to really lean into. That's something that's being asked to be explored. Next, we have how can I disconnect my rhythm from my sense of belonging? And this goes back to the original wound that I was talking about, is that, you know, we feel this need to follow the rhythm that is set for us. Otherwise, we're going to be alienated, um, or isolated, and we're going to basically be left alone, which is everybody's kind of like primal fear, is that eventually we're just going to be left all by ourselves, all alone, and we're going to die, right? That is, I think, for the majority of people, that is the absolute core fear that people carry. And so right now, we're being asked, like, how can I disconnect that from my sense of belonging? Because we should be able to do whatever we need to do to follow our rhythm and to stay within sync with ourselves without ever having to question if we belong, without ever having to question, like our lovability or our value to the people that are around us. And wow, we got a lot of people showing up today. So now we have the Queen of Swords. And it's interesting that we have the Knight of Swords followed directly by the Queen of Swords. And the Queen of Swords is saying that the best way that you can actually disconnect yourself is to really get to the heart of the matter. And I say that in a kind of an ironic way because the Queen of Swords, in my opinion, is one of the most compassionate queens in the deck. However, she is seen as a very cold-hearted, very harsh kind of person because of the way she comes across. But the thing is she wants to clear the air so that the truth can come out and that the healing can actually start to begin. And sometimes the idea of, hard love or, the brutal honesty that people bring out is the jarring and the pattern interrupt that we need in order to really be able to understand what is underneath. She is a very, very skilled surgeon in that sense of being able to manipulate situations in a way that she can get in underneath the problem and cut it out from underneath and take it out from the root, as opposed to like some of the other queens who are more, you know, compassionate in the sense of I'm going to try to do this the best way I can without causing you any more pain. But the Queen of Swords says pain is what's going to tell you it's working, right? When you think about any wound that you've ever had and any treatment you've ever had for a wound, pain tells you that it's working because without the pain, there would be even more serious concerns, right? Like, so if you have a broken arm and you don't feel it, I would be really, really concerned versus having a broken arm and feeling the pain. Nobody wants to feel the pain. Nobody, I shouldn't say that. There are people out there that do embrace pain, but for the most part, most people don't run out looking for pain. But the thing is the Queen of Swords comes out, and her question is basically, do you want to have the pain sharp, harsh, and all at once now, or do you want to experience long, lingering, accumulative pain that is going to happen if you don't get it out now, right? She's the type that I'm going to rip the bandage off because it's the best way to start the process. And sometimes, we just need that jarring understanding that, hey, the stories you are telling are the problem, and they're the ones that are basically telling you that you don't belong. But I'm going to tell you it's all a bunch of bull, right? It is not the stories that you tell about you that are making you not belong. It is the way that you embody the stories that send off that vibration, right? Like what we were just talking about, that are tuning your body to send off a vibration that is going to attract you or attract to you the people that are going to tell you that you're not right, that there's something wrong, that you don't belong, that you need to be isolated. And the Queen is saying, start telling stories from the heart. Start telling true stories from the heart and see what happens. And that's the best way to really disconnect yourself from this idea that what I do equals what I'm worth. And that is a really, really hard, hard story to break. And then our last card comes and asks, how can I continue to carry myself when my rhythm challenges someone else's? This, I think, is also connected to belonging, right? Because one of the reasons why we will hide ourselves and distort ourselves and contort ourselves to belong is because we don't want other people to be uncomfortable around us when we do what comes natural to us, when we follow the things that, are part of our natural rhythm. And so a lot of times when we encounter somebody and we understand either through the way they act or what they say that our behavior makes them feel uncomfortable, we're going to go, okay. But what we're being asked right now at this point to do is not. If they're uncomfortable, that is up to them to have to find a way to deal with it. It is not up to us to have to surrender or hide any part of ourselves. And so, interesting here that we have the Nine of Swords coming up. And the Nine of Swords is saying, if someone else feels uncomfortable about what's going on, you might feel the anxiety, you might feel the horror, you might feel the pressure to have to conform. And the only way that we can ease anxiety, which is, very, very well studied, is to face the anxiety. And it goes back to the Queen of Swords, right? The Queen of Swords is going to say, hey, you have to deal with this because if you don't, it's just going to keep going on and eventually it might even get worse than whatever you're feeling right now. And then that kind of opens the door. She's like kind of like opening the door to say, here's the Nine of Swords. If you fail, and I use this word in a different way than the intention, but if you if you are unable to allow that wound to be excised, you know what I'm getting at. But if you're unable to allow that truth to come forward, then the anxiety is just going to keep building and keep building. And you're unlike the Eight of Swords, which is you're allowing your fear to trap you. What ends up happening in this case is you allow the external world to determine who you are. And then you become more and more and more uncomfortable with who you are. You become more alienated. You become more disconnected from who you truly are. And then the more out of sync you are, the more you're going to start to notice things like autoimmune diseases start to pop up. Different kinds of fatigue-based issues start to pop up. The more that you ignore it and the more that you allow yourself to come out of sync with your natural rhythms and your natural ways of moving through the world, the more, and I put this in quotes, broken down your body is actually going to become. And so the option that you're given at this point is to really tune into what the body's saying and to really, really work with the stories because we have one fire card, right? So we have the Knight of Wands who is leading the crusade and leading the charge and saying we need to go on an adventure to find our own rhythm, right? We've lost it. We've lost the thread. We've lost where it is we're going. We've lost what it is we're doing, and we really, really need to, put all of our effort, all of our energy into moving forward so that we can find where we're going. But everything else is swords. Everything else is conflict and choice and stories and words and energy and vibration of everything that we are saying to ourselves and to other people. And so we're really, really being asked right now that if you want to align truly with yourself, if you really want to be able to lean into the rhythm of your unique flow, right? And if you really want to understand, going back to our original question, what the different rhythms are that are creating tension and discord in your life, you have to go back to the conversations. You have to go back to the way that you are engaging in conversation, to the conversations you're avoiding, and to the way that your body is reacting to the stories that you're telling, the input that you're receiving from other people, as well as the choices that you are making within your life and how you're justifying them and how you're validating them. That's really the best way for you to find your own rhythm and your own sync is to really just take a step back and listen. So I hope you enjoyed this a little bit of, I guess, more harsh love coming from the cards than we tend to get. But I think that what the cards are really trying to do is really trying to get our attention that we have built ourselves into these big, huge bubbles of anxiety, right? We're just these big, interconnected, tied knots of fear and worry about saying the wrong thing, about being the wrong thing, about sharing the wrong thing. And really what we're being asked to do is to go on an adventure to find the end and to untangle that thread so that we actually have a clearer understanding of who we are and what we need to do in order to move more smoothly through our lives. So I hope that this little chiding from the universe lands as it's meant to. I know I felt the sting of that Queen of Swords, so I hope that she's not too harsh for you. But if she is, sometimes we just need it. And so, in the loving words of Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar might help the medicine go down. Um, so, with that, I wish you all well, and I will see you again next week. In the meantime, take care, and I will see you around the webs.